Okay, today is 5.2, day 1, and it's about absolute values. So just a quick note on the lab. The only other thing now that you need is your initial height, your starting height. That goes in here. It's definitely important. And I've got a little marks on the wall here where it's at 1.1 meters, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. So if you threw underhand maybe in this zone and you find yourself on the way out the door and go, okay, well, I threw it like this, so I'd be about 1.8. Or I threw it overhead like this, so I'd be about 2.1. Okay, so you need to find your starting height at the door there before you leave today. Then you'll have the time and you'll have the starting height. Well, if you have the time and you have the starting height, and you also know what gravity is, the only thing left is B, except this. And that's what makes you think. At every time, there is a height. Think about that for the ball. At time 0, there's even a height. What is the height at time 0? The height is 0? The height is wherever your hand was right when you were about to launch it. Okay? And then at time like 1 second, the ball is somewhere. It's got a height. At time 2 seconds, it's somewhere. At time 3 seconds, for a lot of you, it had already hit the ground. And then what's its height then? Still has a height. If it hits the ground, the height's what? Say it. What's the height when the ball hits the ground? 0. All right, that's going to be important. All right, so your job to figure out the rest of it. Due Monday. Okay, don't put it off till Sunday night. You'll hate yourself later. All right. Yes, keep it in that same format for all labs. And I need to wipe this. Hold on just a second here. Okay, so here is our first question. This is about absolute value, but I need to actually, from my experience, there's still people in here who don't know how to solve the easy ones. So let's just start with an easy one. X plus 3 is equal to negative, not negative, that's going to make it more complicated. Let's just say 8. Would you please solve that one? And I hope you know the process. And if you don't, you forgot something important from algebra. And I'm going to show you in a second. I'll pause while you try that one. Okay, so you should have said, this breaks into two things. X plus 3 is 8, and x plus 3 is negative 8. That's how you do this. If you don't understand why, let me help you understand why. What's underneath the scribble here could either be 8 or what? Negative 8. So we just set equations to do that. What's underneath the scribble is x plus 3, and so it's either got to be 8 like this, or it's got to be negative 8 like that. All right. And then you just solve two baby equations. That's what today is, pretty much. It's just being able to solve equations, but it gets more complicated, but it still boils down to break it up into multiple little equations and solve them. Here's what we do to make it more complicated. Oh, and by the way, could you graph this and find the answer? Absolutely. Graph both sides and see where, what. So you need to learn to say this little saying because it's very powerful. All right, I've already blown it with your class, so I'm going to just keep going here. But if I had not told you this, I think a lot of you would have had no idea. Let's say this is on the ACT test. I think a lot of you would have had no idea how to solve this. In fact, maybe I'm still okay. Can any of you tell me how to solve this? Nobody has any idea? This is an ACT question. And you're sitting there going, dang, I guess I should maybe, like, I don't know, break it up in 2 parts or something. Yes? Okay. You're part right. Okay, so would you agree you're in the classroom with a fair amount of really smart kids? You're all in an honors class in math. You're all pretty smart. Yet nobody in here has thought of it. Oh, maybe one person. Yes? Nope. Not that simple. Yes? Kind of. Kind of multiple answers, yes, but it's more complicated than that. All right, so I guess I didn't blow it with you. Nobody knew. And this is really sad because this is a really powerful ACT strategy that you should know. I've told you this before, I know I have, that whenever you come to an equation you can't solve, you could do what? Graph both sides and see where they cross. Graph both sides and see where they cross. Go ahead, do it. Grab your graphing calculator, graph both sides of this and see where you cross. Now, another good thing about this is it's going to show some of you that you don't know where the heck the absolute value button is on your calculator. It's kind of hidden. So you got to go to the, have you heard of the one ring to rule them all? Well, there's one button to rule them all on the calculator. It's the calculator button. I'm wrong. There's no button called calculator. It's the, what's it called again? The catalog button. Look above the 0 key. Do you see the word catalog? That has every function on the calculator is there. If you had all your other buttons on your calculator break, you could get by with just that one. It'd be very slow, but. So once you hit second 0, which puts you above the 0 key, which is the I can't say it again, catalog button, you should find absolute value right there at the top of the list because it's sorted alphabetically. What if you want to find GCF? Do you know where the GCF button is? I don't, but I do know where the catalog button is. So in a minute, I'll ask you to find the GCF to just see if you can find it. All right, now, do these two appear to cross? All right. Now here's the tricky part. Do they appear to cross twice or only once? Because with a V like this, if there's a V on this side, y equals this, and y equals that, if there's a V for this one, that's red, and I know where that one is, it's just a V that's been shifted left 3. Know what I mean? Like that, kind of. It's a V shape shifted left 3. And then how about the blue one? Well, that's been shifted left 7, but it has this shrink going on. So basically it's like that, right? Where do they cross? Where's the spot where they cross? To tell me what that dot is. What comma what? Well, if you don't know, please don't use the trace button. Trace is not the way to find where they cross. It's something called second calculate intersect. I gotcha. And then if you can't tell, maybe you need to zoom in closer so you can see where they cross. All right, I don't want to spend a ton of time on the calculator stuff, but some things you should know for the future. Graph both sides and see where they cross. Helps on the ACT test, like tons of times. Number 2, where can you find every single button on the calculator? Underneath the what? Catalog button, okay? Number 3, when you do graph things and you want to see where they cross, you go second calculate intersect. Second, then the calc button, which is above the trace. And then intersect. You choose the intersect option. So tell me, where did these intersect? Did you find it? -4, 1. Can anybody verify at -4, 1 is where they crossed? Okay, good. Now, last thought. My original equation had only x's in it. So what do you think I want? The x or the y of that point? The x. We're trying to solve for x, right? We want x equals what? And the answer is -4. All right, so I say the answer is -4, but let's say that you're about to risk your life on it. Because we have to, you know, there are jobs out there where you risk your life every day by climbing up power poles and if you aren't sure that that thing is off, and you touch it, you can die. Okay, you get launched out into outer space with not enough oxygen, you're going to die. Somebody doesn't test the plates right on the outside that protect the capsule of the Challenger, everybody died. So moral of the story, sometimes it really matters a lot. How can I know if this is right? Plug it in. Let's stick it in there. -4 here, -4 there. See if it really comes out right. When I put in -4 here, I get -1, and the absolute value of that is +1. That comes out to -8 plus 7, which is -1. Absolute value, that is 1. Yay, it worked. Yay. Now, could there be other answers? I mean, I'm just saying, in theory, can there be more than one answer? Yes. Do you think there's more than one answer in this case? Ooh, a lot of people say yes. How did you tell? Because you can't see it on the screen when you first graph it, can you? Oh, can you? Okay, I know that's, I looked at somebody's just kind of over their shoulder, and you really, it was very hard to see. You got to go zoom, and there's the best zoom I would pick is the zoom box. And then you just make a little box around the area you want to zoom into. And then you can see that they actually crossed. Can somebody show me a nice graph so that I can see to replicate it on the board here? That will work. Thank you. I'll be right back with it. Aha. Okay. So this one was much wider. So I'm going to get a better actual picture here. And that's probably the blue one there. And then this red one was the more normal shifted left 2 or left 3. So it's like that. Okay, cool. There was 2 spots that they crossed. If you zoom in close enough, you could see it. Okay, thank you. So there's 2 answers, -4, and what's the other answer? Can anybody verify his answer? Anybody get the same thing? All right, a bunch of people got that. Good. All right, so there's your 2 answers. Now, do you really think it would be so nice to give you a calculator on this next test? No, we aren't. So you need to learn how to solve this without the calculator. But I wanted to bring that up because it's a really powerful ACT strategy. Graph both sides and see where they cross. Okay, good. So then how could we have solved it another way? All right, watch. And this is important. And don't just watch. Copy down because it'll help you remember it. I start by saying x plus 3 equals 2x plus 7. Do you get all I did is drop all the absolute values? And then I just solve that, and that's your first answer. I'm halfway there. Living on a prayer. Okay, then the next one is x plus 3 equals, do you remember that last time when we had like just a number over there, we always did the opposite of the number then? So then I got to do the opposite of this. So I go -2x plus 7, right? No. What's missing? Parentheses. That negative has to get distributed to both things. And you solve that one and you got your answer. Now, here's the weird part. You technically have to go back and do it backwards and say, what if this equation had been rearranged and this was on the left and the other one was on the right? And then just watch what would happen. You would have 2x plus 7 is equal to x plus 3. Anybody notice anything about those two? These are the exact same thing. Okay? And then, again, coming from this guy being like the lead, 2x plus 7 has to equal negative of x plus 3. But I know this and this do definitely look different, but try multiplying the bottom one by -1 on both sides. They're identical. If I multiply by -1 on both sides, that becomes positive, this becomes negative, and then it's the exact same thing as the other one. So yes, there's 4 parts to this. Somebody earlier had posited that they thought there would be 4 answers to this. And there is, except that there's 2 sets of 2 that are identical. All right, now, I'm going to give you 2 ways to go on this then. You can either solve all 4 equations and hopefully you only get 2 answers. 2 of them will be this and 2 of them will be that. Or you're taking a little more risk by not doing the second set of equations, but they're exactly the same as the ones above them. You really only have to do the first 2 because the other 2 just overlap with each other. All right, so Actually, let's solve these two. Everybody solve the black equation and the green equation and see what you think the two answers are. We already did this one with the calculator, so I'm pretty sure it's going to be like negative, what was it again? Negative 3.3 repeating. And then what was the other one? Negative 4. Okay. Double check by solving these by hand and seeing if you get the same thing. That one definitely comes out to negative 4. Negative 10/3 is the same as negative 3.3 repeating. So there we go. All right. Now, the only thing we haven't covered is big picture of what these graphs look like. Think back to honors higher algebra. This was something special. It was called vertex form of an equation. So what do you think the vertex, or the place where it makes the turn, is? Negative 4,7 is a really good guess. 4,7. 4,7. Why 4,7? Because you can't trust the stuff on the inside. Does that ring a bell? So 4,7, I go over 4, up 7. Boom. I got my spot. Is this a V or a mountain? It's a V because there's no negative out front to flip it over and make it like a mountain. So it's a V. There we go. That's just a rough sketch, but it's good enough to tell me the domain. What's the domain on this? Negative infinity, positive infinity, also known as, a little faster to say, all reals. Okay. And then what's the range? 7 to infinity. Okay. Cool. You know everything now that you need to know. So let's get to your homework. It's right. Actually, there was a couple problems before this, but I think they're too easy. We're going to start on this one. This is the first. Yes, this is part of your homework, this yellow page right here. And I'll help you get started. Right away, I'm zooming in on the vertex. See it? What's the vertex in this case? Negative 4, negative 4. You guys know what page this is in the document? Page what? Page 11? Anybody verify that? Okay, good. And then this is a V shape, but I could be a little slack and just say, oh, there it is. I really ought to check because there's a stretch factor involved here I haven't done anything with. And I think I feel like I'm off a little bit. So what's your best friend in graphing? XY chart. And tell me a smart thing to put in, and don't say 0, because in this case, 0 isn't really that smart. Something really smart. Come on, think it through. Negative 3 is closer. Negative 4. Why is that the ultimate spot? Because it makes the whole left side cancel. This becomes 0, and then 0 times 3 is 0, and then it's minus 4. Negative 4, negative 4. Now, negative 3 was also good. I'll give you, that's my second favorite. Negative 3 plus 4 makes 1, and then absolute value of that is 1, and then 3 times 1 is 3, and then 3 minus 4 is negative 1. So look, I'm going to check. Are my points lining up? Negative 4 was good. Negative 3, negative 1. Oops. Do you get how I made the thing? I didn't have the stretch. So now I've got the stretch factor in there, and it's going up with a slope of 3. Does that make sense? There, the red one is actually the right answer. And it would only be through being really careful with your stretch factor or using the XY chart. For some reason, this feels like extra work to people, and so they often don't do it. And I'm telling you, I've graded a lot of papers. Kids that do the XY chart almost always get them right. It's not perfect, but it's definitely correlated with success. Okay, so now, honestly, even though I could look at the graph and find the x-intercept and the y-intercept, I would still do it algebraically. Listen, guys. So the x-intercept, finish this sentence. The x-intercept is where y equals 0, and the y-intercept is where x equals 0. You just have to stick those into this equation here, and it'll be super easy to solve. Find them that way, because that's a little obscure exactly where did it hit. I don't know. Maybe you should use algebra to do it. Where y equals 0, where x equals 0. All right. Domain and range we've already talked about. Increasing interval. Oh, yeah, it's increasing from here on. So hopefully you'll be able to write that with, I would personally use interval notation since you're describing intervals. And then is there an absolute min or max? Is there an absolute min? Yes. That is the lowest it goes. That spot right there. Okay. So that's just a little bit of review with you, and that is your first homework problem. And then the next one is this little set. These are just plain old solving absolute values. This is super quick. If you don't know how to do this in half a minute, I'm dismayed and afraid. This one, a little tougher. It is the first page for me. So I'm just going to say it this way. This is the first page that I want you to start doing other than that other problem. I know there was this in there, but I'm skipping that. Anyway, do this page, and then the next page I want you to do is this page. And this problem right here, just help me. One of my favorite sayings is get the clump alone. That's the clump, and you should get that clump alone. That could have been a square root. That could have been a parentheses with something squared. But anytime there's something grouped, I could like to just for fun call it a clump. That way I've invented a word. Get the clump alone. That's the clump. You need to get it alone. So we're going to start by adding 3 and then dividing by 2. And then, once the clump is alone, then you can split it into the 2 equations. But you got to start by getting that clump alone. Then you can split it. Okay, moving on to this page. I feel like these are all really good ones. They're all not incredibly hard, but you need to be able to break it into 2 parts. You got to handle, what if it's not like just equal to 5? What if it's x minus 5? Well, then you make one of them positive and you make one of them negative, and you solve your 2 equations. All right, moving on to this page. These are doable. They're the kind I showed you where you're going to end up with 4 equations, but 2 of them are identical to 2 other ones. So you'll only get 2 answers. Number 19, if you think about how you could start the problem by getting a clump alone, 16 and 19 will become pretty much identical. All right, and then moving on. These I feel like are just kind of overkill on the graphing thing. We've already done one like that with the yellow one, so we're going to skip this whole page, and then skip this whole page, and skip that whole page. So you may skip 3 pages at the end there, which should save you a fair amount of time. And then I think, considering how much time we have left and stuff, this makes it a reasonably sized homework assignment. Just for getting perspective here, my goal is to keep your assignments under 30 minutes. An occasional night we'll go over that, but have the assignments been typically 30 minutes or less? Good. Okay. Okay, that's all I got for you for today.